So with that, it's over to you, Sarah. I'll let you know 5 minutes again.
Thanks, here. I'm Sarah and I'm an addict.
Sarah.
Got a bit of a racy heart. I think the meeting's busy as well today because I think someone else was meant to do the chair, so it's making me feel better that you've all turned up to listen to someone else, but you've got me instead. So, because when I was asked to do the share today about relationships, like my instant reaction or response to this is no. Don't want to do it. Don't want to talk about it. I don't feel comfortable with it. So I did initially, I think, say no, but then I felt a bit guilty and I thought, well, I can only share my experience. I still sit in meetings and I still put so much expectation on myself about, you've been around for so many years, you should be able to say this and say that and do this. I'm no different to anyone in this room. The only difference between me and a newcomer is that I've been here for a number of years and I've gone through the programme. That's the difference. There's always something to learn. There's always, there's always something for me to keep learning. And I suppose, relationships, as that reading said, it's not just about, because instantly, the first thing I go to is intimate relationships. And I'm like, well, I messed up there big time. But it isn't just about, it's about relationships with everybody that I've come into contact with. And, I can remember very early on in recovery, my sponsor saying to me, Sarah, you will learn about yourself when you get into a relationship with another person. And those words could not have been truer. So I suppose, if I think about the people that have been around me, relationships while I was using with my family were really, they were troubled. They were really troubled because what I know now, but what I didn't know then was, they were always worried about me. And I did worry about them to some extent, but I was too selfish and too self-centred to really give it too much thought or too much time. So when I came into the programme, just, sort of focused on my family at the moment, when I came into the programme, I had a lot of making up to do. I had a lot of healing to do. Especially with my mum, I'd said sorry so many times, and the sorry meant nothing because I'd say sorry and then I'd do the same thing over and over again. Like I'd steal from her, I just wasn't a very nice daughter. And I did a lot of work around recovering my relationships with my parents. And I think, all this stuff is, everything I say to you is all in hindsight. It's all stuff that I've learned. At the time, I probably didn't have a clue what I was doing. I always sought guidance from other people because, my own thinking isn't always the best thinking. It usually gets me into quite a lot of trouble. And I think, with the process of the steps and the way the steps work, being able to do like the 6, the 7, the amends and all of that stuff, that's where my healing came in, in relation to my family, like, with my mum and my dad. God, there's so much I could tell you about. And I think just speaking about my mum and my dad, the difference today compared to when I was using it is my mum can trust me now. My mum can call me and say she needs something and I will do it. If I can't do it straight away, I'll do it as soon as I can. I'm reliable now. I weren't reliable before. And I think trust has always been a huge thing throughout my recovery, and obviously prior to coming into recovery, I didn't trust a soul because I didn't trust myself. I always put that lack of trust out on other people, and I always blamed other people. And especially when, getting into intimate relationships, I just thought, well, they're going to cheat, so I'm going to do it first. So that was how I was when, going through a period of time in my life. But, just sort of thinking about my mum and my dad, things happen in recovery at certain times for certain reasons, I believe. And when you talk about, you know, being honest and stuff with your family, when my dad got really sick, and went through like a 5-year battle with cancer, and I never really had a good relationship with my dad before that, because my dad and my mum got divorced when I was really young, and my dad went off, and then my dad came back. It was all very, very chaotic. But I wasn't really close to my dad. I'd love to pretend that I was, but I wasn't. Our relationship really began in the last 5 years of his life, which is really sad, but true. I've got very good memories of being a young girl with my dad. I've got really lovely memories, but they didn't last very long. But yeah, the last 5 years of his life was when our relationship was at its best. And I learnt more about my dad in those last 5 years than I'd learnt throughout my whole life. And that was because every time he went for chemo, every hospital appointment, radiotherapy, all of that, I went with him. I probably missed 2 of his appointments for one reason or another. And when you're faced with those situations and you're sitting in, you know, the oncology unit at Bart's Hospital, and your appointment's at 10, but you're not getting seen till half 12 because it's busy, you're forced to talk. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for all of those drawn out appointments, because I learnt so much about my dad, and my dad learnt so much about me during that time. And it's a really, really special time. What I know about myself now that came out of the situation with when my dad died was, my dad chose to die at home. I don't want this to sound grim, because it's not. It's beautiful. For me, it's beautiful. And my dad wanted to die at home, and he got that wish. And in those moments leading up to him dying, he was in the bed. I was sitting with him, rubbing it, like just doing all the lovely stuff. And I realised I never told him I love him. And I was like, and I knew the minute I knew it was coming. I knew he was going to take his last breath. I knew the moment was coming. And I was sitting there where like music was playing. I was thinking, you've got to tell him. You've got to tell him. You've got to tell him. I was like, I can't say it. I can't say it. It literally was. It was so painful. It was so painful. But I was thinking, I've got to tell him now. I've got to say it before he goes, because otherwise he's never going to know. He did know. He knew. He did know. And it was, honest to God, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, telling my own dad I love him. And I did do it. I didn't say like, I love you, Dad. No, actually I did. I said to him, you know I love you, Dad, don't you? And at this point he couldn't talk. His breathing was really bad. And all he did was nod his head. And he was gone within like not even a minute. That was huge for me. And that, for me, regardless of all external stuff that goes on in life and throughout recovery and whatever, for me, that was the healing of a relationship that really wasn't that good. That was really special for me and for my dad. It really, really was. My mum, my journey is ongoing with her. I had her around Christmas Day. She was like, bless her little heart, she had a little sparkly jumper on, she had a little necklace on, her earrings. She just, my relationship with my mum now, my mum was an alcoholic. And when I was a year clean, my mum just stopped drinking. She didn't go to other fellowships. God, I nearly said it then. She didn't go to other fellowships, and she just stopped. And she hasn't had a drink since. That's 11, 12, 14, maybe 14 years she hasn't had a drink for now. I mean, just replace it with other things, but we won't go down that route. A few little tranquilizers and Valium and stuff. However, my relationship with her was always very challenging. Always challenging because I just had immense fear with my mum. because my mum told me when I was young that she was going to die before she reached 56 because my nan died at 56. So every time my mum got really drunk and ends up in hospital with the DTs and all of that withdrawal, I would think she's going to die, she's going to die, she's going to die. So I had constant fear that my mum was going to die from a really, really early age. She's like 71, she's still going strong. Like, honestly. Our relationship has definitely healed. It's not perfect, but I can be honest with my mum now. All the things that I did to her that caused her harm while I was using, I've made up for those things now. And those are things like the money that I stole from her, I've repaid. And it takes time to build that trust back up. You know, as I said earlier, I was always saying sorry. Always saying sorry. But when I say sorry now, I mean it. And then I follow it through with the action, which is don't do the thing you did in the first place and then just carry on. You know, when I think about my children, so I've got 2 children. I've got a young man, son, and I've got a young daughter. So my son was dragged through my addiction and came through the recovery journey with me, and my daughter has never seen me use. She's 13, she's nearly 14. My relationship with them is very different. I'm just my daughter's skivvy, like I've just got to be honest. Like, literally. And my daughter has grown up with fear of abandonment and rejection and some other words that I could use through sort of like the breakdown of the relationship I had with her dad. So, you know, just in terms of relationship, my relationship with her is she knows that I'm not going anywhere. She just knows that. And I know she knows that. She trusts me 110%. The relationship with my son is very different. I had a lot of making up to do with him. And as that reading was saying about inventory, I've only learned all of these things because I've written all this stuff down, and because I've spoke about it, and because I've shared about it, and I've screamed about it and cried about it and sobbed about it. You know, all of these things that I'm saying now, and all this stuff is just come through healing, and it comes through time. It hasn't happened overnight for me. As I said, I've been coming here for quite some time now. And and doing my own personal inventory. So my son, the relationship, the work with him is still ongoing. He was meant to come and spend Christmas Day with me, and he chose not to, and that really hurt. But I have to respect his wish. I mean, he's not a kid. I still think he's 16. He's not a kid. He's a man. You know, I still have not as much guilt and not as much shame, but I have guilt and shame with him that I don't have with my daughter. It's very different. They're very, very different relationships. You know, and I suppose I can sort of like speak about my son's dad, really. So my relationship with him was absolutely chaotic. It was a using relationship. It was insane. It was mental, like absolutely mental. And we split really young. Obviously, I had a baby. He moved away. He went away to try and get clean. Anyway, long story short, he was on my step 9, and he was living in Bournemouth, but I didn't know where. I waited 5 years to make this amend to him. I didn't go looking for him. He came to me. It just happened. You know, this stuff in recovery just happens. I don't know how it happens, but it just does. And I had the opportunity to say to him, I'm really sorry for the things that I'd done through using. And he also said sorry to me. And the last time I saw him was in 2008 in March, and he was getting his passport because he was going to go to Spain because he was trying to get clean. And he did go and do that, and he got clean for a little while, and he came out of a rehab, and he used, and he thought he could use the way he had always used, and he died. And you know, and in this is where this program, for me, right, so these are the really tough things, but this is where this program really, really works. Because if I'd never done step 4, if I'd never done 6, 7, if I'd never done 8, 9, I'd never have met him and I'd never have said sorry. And I'd have never buried him and been at his funeral and supported my son if I weren't clean. That would not have happened. It just absolutely, I've no doubt about that. So when he died, I felt clean, like clean. But I just knew that I had a whole burden of pain with his son to try and manage. He was 16 at the time. So yeah, very different with my son than with my daughter, but some similarities as well. So I trot through recovery, you know, as we do a bit of, you know, and then get into an intimate relationship. I hope I've got like 2 minutes left now because I want this one to end sharpish.
25.
So, so I was one of those people in recovery that, you know, I had a sponsor. Actually, let me touch on this first. So the first sponsor I had I had her for 5 years. She was loving, she was kind, she was really supportive, she was very honest with me, and she was a great listener. She's probably a lot better than I am. And she was probably one of the first females that I trusted. Like, I knew I could tell her stuff, and I knew that she weren't going to go and tell everyone in the room or on the phone or tell her mates. I just knew. And that really instilled faith in me. I needed that. I needed to know that there was somebody that I could bare my soul to, because I had some dark secrets that I weren't going to tell nobody. And so if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have learned to be honest, and I wouldn't have learned to trust in other people. And so she really, really helped me with that and helped me to sort of get those qualities myself and be like that. Like, I really admired that in her, because I gossiped about everyone. I spoke about everyone. The minute they walked out the door, I was talking about them. That's the truth. I'm not going to lie. I did. So she really, really helped me with that. But then she also said to me, she also sort of, you know, she made suggestions to me, and I just did I did all the things she asked me to do. But then there's that thing like in NA, don't get involved with someone like for the first year. I didn't listen to that. I didn't listen to that. And then, you know, I certainly don't want to sit here and portray this perfect picture of me, because I am by no means perfect. In fact, I'm really grateful I'm not perfect. What I've done is I've made mistakes throughout recovery. I've worked through the steps, realised if I'm making this and repeating patterns over and over again, then I try to stop it. I try and nip it in the bud. But it's hard to sit here and share about relationships without talking about one of the biggest relationships that I had in recovery. It's just too hard not to do it. But so I did get involved in a relationship with somebody that was in recovery, and I maintained, mostly I, maintained that relationship for 16 years. So it's hard to sit here and not talk about that without talking about that, because it was a huge part of my recovery. And obviously we had our daughter and blah, blah, blah. I learned so much about myself in that relationship. How insecure I felt at times. How all of the stuff that I sort of gained back for myself, I would lose it quite rapidly, quite quickly, like, you know, quite easily. I'd get really insecure about the smallest things. I'd become not trusting. I tried to control everything. I believed that I had the power to change people. And I tried. Trust me, I tried. It was a really good relationship for quite a long period of time, and then it became difficult because of the other person, and I'm not saying this derogatory or in any bad way, but I can't tell you the story without telling you the story, if that makes sense. His recovery took a bit of a back burner, and it really affected our relationship. And during those times, I felt financially insecure, like emotionally insecure. Like it was just like the most awful time. And there were times where I genuinely felt like I was going insane, like I thought I was losing my mind. I really thought I was losing my mind. But I never thought about using. Like, even on the worst days, I didn't think about using. I knew that weren't going to solve the problem. And I realised as time went on as well, just things about myself. Like, I'm not going to talk about him in this because I've no power over other people. I'm very aware of that. I realised a few things about myself, actually, good and bad. The bad was, not so much bad, but the parts of me anyway, was that, you know, I wanted to control. I got very fearful. Sometimes I was greedy. I had unrealistic expectations at times. Like, I think all those things that were said in the reading. But then the other side of me was, I was capable of loving another human being. And by doing that, I was putting myself at risk. That's how it felt anyway. Thank God for that. Because I can appear to be, to people that don't know me, I can appear to be very cold and cut off and shut down. But if you know me, I'm really not like that. And I just knew that I was capable of loving someone and being in love, but there was always that risk of getting hurt. And I was willing to take that risk. And the good thing, I mean, obviously the relationship ended. It lasted for 16 years, which was really, really good. And the relationship ended not because I wanted the relationship to end. It should have ended years before. He made the decision to leave, and it was, as somebody said to me, this has been done for you, Sarah, not to you. And it was the best thing that could have ever happened for both of us. Our daughter has really struggled, actually. She's found it very difficult. However, we're managing to co-parent respectfully. I shared that he was at our house, and we managed to sit and be respectful to each other, and the atmosphere was kind and it was nice and it was genuine. I couldn't have done that a year ago. Absolutely no way I couldn't have done that a year ago. So there's growth, but then again, it's time. Like, this stuff takes time. It's another healing process. And what I've learnt about myself in that is that I've gained back my independence. I'm still going to work. I'm still managing my house. I'm still managing my car. I'm still managing my children. You know, all that stuff that I think I kind of lost. I lost myself a little bit in that relationship, and I've brought that stuff's come back. So I'm really grateful for that. And yeah, I mean, I want this to end now because I don't know what I'm going to say anymore. Sponsorship sponsees. So my sponsees say to me, which I feel really, really grateful for, they feel that they say to me that, I'm only telling you what they say to me, it's not stuff that I'm making up. They say to me, Sarah, I feel like I can tell you anything. That means so much to me because it took me a long time to be very, 100% open and honest with my very first sponsor. So that means a lot to me. And I think, all of that stuff, the stuff that I carry now is stuff that's been given to me from other people. I didn't come into my first 10A meeting like, you know what they say in the readings, brimming with love, open, honesty and madness. Oh no. I don't even know why I came to my first meeting. I was just brought there. I just arrived in the meeting because there was nothing else left for me. There was no other way. So, you know, I've got really good friends in recovery. I can't share without speaking about my friends. I've got really good relationships with my friends. And you know what I know, like 100%, my true friends are the ones that will tell me the truth, even if they know it's going to hurt me or piss me off or make me angry, because they've got my best interests at heart. And that's what I'm really, really grateful for. I've got friends that have been in recovery since day one that are still clean and they're still on their journey with me. And if they think I'm doing something wrong, they'll pull me up on it. That's a true friend. I don't want friends that are going to coerce with me and encourage me to do things that are not good for me. I want friends that are going to be honest with me and say to me, Sarah, knock that on the head. That's not good for you. You're doing wrong. You're going to cause harm. Whatever. So, I feel a bit drained now. I'm going to... I've got nothing more to say. I'll let you all come back and share all your experiences about relationships. Thank you very much. Thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Sarah.